All right, everyone. Now it's the time for our final daily math activity until summer. I cannot believe this is our last daily math activity together. So let us finish strong. Let's make sure we all do it and share your post in the comments below. Okay, so we're gonna finish our week-long conversation on time. Now at the end, I have a challenge for you. Okay, so this is gonna be a very short video, and I want you guys just to make sure you're focused because you'll need this information to answer my challenge. Okay, so we're gonna first go over our different clocks. So remember, all week we've been talking about time, and we read time on a clock, and there are two kinds of clock. What's the name of this kind of clock? It's called an analog clock. What do we call it? An analog clock. Remember, an analog clock has the numbers that go all the way around the face. All right, let's talk about an analog clock first. Now, the shape of the clock is called the face. How do we read the hour? What do we use to read the hour? Do we read this arrow or this arrow? Yeah, we read the hour by looking at this smaller arrow here, and it's called the small hand. The small hand tells us the hour. All right, friends? And what do you use to read the minutes? We use this arrow here, and it's called the big hand. Remember, the big hand tells us the minutes. The big hand tells us the minutes. And when the big hand points to 12, what do we say? We say o'clock. Nice job. So those are the three parts of an analog clock. Let's move over to the digital clock. The digital clock has 4 different parts. All right. Remember, a digital clock, they're on your phone. A lot of you have a digital clock on your actual phone if you have an iPhone or an Android. All right, and you need electricity to power a digital clock. Okay, so the first part of a digital clock is this right here. What do we call this? We call it the face. And just like on an analog clock, the face on a digital clock is the shape of the clock, and that shape can be any shape. You'll see a lot of rectangles, but they can also be circles. They can also be triangles. The face of a digital clock can be any shape, right? Another part of a digital clock is these 2 dots right here. What do we call these 2 dots? We call it the colon. Remember, the colon, we need it to separate this side from this side. What do we put on this side of the colon? What do we put? We put the hour. So in this box, we always write the hour. And then what do we put on this side of the colon? On this side, we put the minutes. All right, friends? So remember, if on the analog clock, when the big hand points to 12, we say o'clock. How do we write o'clock on a digital clock? How do we write o'clock? Do you remember? We write it as 2 zeros like that. And when we read it, we also say o'clock. Okay, so 0, 0 means the same thing as the big hand pointing to the 12. They both mean o'clock. All right, so now we know the different parts of both the analog clock and the digital clock. So now let's move on to Mr. Junie's challenge. Mr. Junie's challenge. For my final challenge for the whole school year. Oh, here are my chili peppers, my spicy chili peppers. What you are going to do for Mr. Junie, the directions are pretty simple. All Mr. Junie is going to do is tell you the time. What is Mr. Junie going to tell you? the time. So I might say 4 o'clock, I might say 8 o'clock, I might say 12 o'clock. And what you, my friends on the other side of the screen, what you have to do is represent that time on an analog clock and on a digital clock. So you have to represent the time in 2 ways. You have to represent the time in 2 ways, on an analog clock and on a digital clock. All right, friends? And I'm gonna give you 2 different times. So this is the first time up here, and then the second time down here. So families, make sure you just have a piece of paper, something to write with, and you can help your Rocketeers draw the analog template and also the digital clock template, just like how I have it here. So you can pause the video if you need to. Go ahead and draw the templates, and then come back when you are ready. Okay, so everyone should have their templates now. What I'm gonna do is just give you the time and then let you go. All right, friends? So for number 1, the first time that Mr. Juni is gonna say is 1 o'clock. What's the time for number 1? 1 o'clock. So represent 1 o'clock on an analog clock and on a digital clock. All right. For number 2, I want you to represent another time. I want you to represent 12 o'clock. What's the time for number 2? 12 o'clock. So represent 12 o'clock on an analog clock and on a digital clock. And friends, when you are done, that is the end of all of our daily math activities. So make sure you post that final daily math activity work in the comments below. All right, friends? I hope talking about time does not end here. You can practice reading the time any chance you get. You can practice the time in the morning, in the afternoon. You can practice reading time before you go somewhere to make sure you're not late. You can practice time when we go into next school year when you're all first graders, and you can read the time to know when school starts again. There's so many opportunities for you to practice reading time. So continue practice reading time throughout the summer. All right, friends? I cannot wait to see all of your work, and I'll see you all soon at graduation. Bye, everyone.